react if your opponents will pronounce that you cheated because the present government is backing you? Thanks from Eva Santos sa Valenzuela.
Yan po ay realistic na malaking problema, no? Dahil nga sa impression given that you know, the conditioning of the minds of the attempt to condition the minds of the people that, you know, cheating will happen or whatnot. That's why I can only appeal also to the COMELEC that they be extra careful with this election and extra prudent, because a credible result is really a sine qua non for national unity and national development. And I wouldn't also put it naman and insult the Filipino people in that manner that if it is truly an expression of their will that they could have only, you know, their will could only have been thwarted for a particular result to come out. I will not be that pessimistic, and that kind of mentality is really destructive to national unity and national interest. Although that is, for practical purposes, a problem which has to be faced.
Thank you so much, Secretary. We continue on. May I express my appreciation of the positive campaign statements of GIBO and for not making any negative comments against his opponents. He is highly educated, experienced, decent, pleasant, respectable, and well-bred, some of the attributes that fit the bill of a good president. From Breng Biray, watching you right now.
Kasi po, from the start na ako naging standard bearer, even before that, even sa Undoy, even sa MOA AD and all, naging biktima na po ako ng unfair o medyo matinding kritisismo. Ayoko gawin sa ibang tao yun. Naranasan ko po yun, hindi magandang karanasan. At nakaka-realize din na hindi dapat gawin eh. Objective criticism is fine. Pero mudslinging, I've been a victim of it. I certainly don't want my brother to experience it.
Thank you so much, Secretary. Thank you. We continue on. Hello, good evening. Ask ko lang po si Sir GIBO kung mananalo siya, paano niya ba mapag-iisang oposisyon at sa administrasyon?
Hindi po natin pakay pag-isahin ang oposisyon sa administrasyon. Kasi yan po ay lalabas na diktadurya. Kailangan malakas ang oposisyon. Ngunit may mga bagay na kailangan magsalita ng isang boses ang ating bayan. Ano? At kailangan, paminsan-minsan, ay meron din pagkakaisa ang bansa. Ang oposisyon ay nandyan upang mag-fiscalize, maging balakid sa diktadurya, at importante po yan. Pwede naman natin sila isama sa governance, sa pag-fiscalize nila, ngunit dapat nandun din sila, alam din nila ang nangyayari to maintain transparency sa mga transaksyon. No? At let's say, for example, in worst cases, a decision to engage in a major military operation or whatnot, it is also of benefit to call the members of the opposition and tell them the circumstances before you at a particular time. Explain to them your course of action so that they understand. And so that if criticism comes, then it is based on more information. And it will be as theoretically or hopefully more objective. But especially too in international incidents, international relations, you have to speak as one voice. And it's also incumbent on the part of the opposition to be mature enough to realize that.
Thank you so much, Secretary. Here's the text here. Sulong GIBO, susuporta kami sa imuha diri sa Cagayan de Oro.
Thank you po. Daghang salamat kaninyo dito sa Cagayan de Oro.
Salamat po. We continue. This is from Vilma Canesares of Boracay. Reproductive health is a major concern of yours, Mr. Teodoro. How do you intend to improve the current reproductive health policies?
Alam niyo po, ang population growth ay isang concern talaga ng lahat. Hindi lang po dahil sa kawalan ng oportunidad sa mga pinanganganak, kung hindi, the Philippines, let us not forget, is 70% water, only 30% land. And that's getting smaller. So habitable areas are getting smaller. Resources are also dwindling, particularly water resources. So it is a problem. However, we face a major stumbling block before we address the problem with the question of whether or not government is the right agency to shape a moral choice. And unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, the answer is no. Ang problema, it leads to the reproductive health bill. Nabindin yung bill sa away o sa debate kung ang gobyerno ang tamang ahensya o hindi. Pero ang populasyon ay napapabayaan pa rin eh. No. So, ganito ang aking pakay. Moral choice is made by a person in consultation with his moral environment or her moral environment. That is our spiritual guardians and the like. However, once that moral choice is made, government must be neutral and be prepared to support a moral choice. For example, in terms of a rhythm method of family planning, government can also support that by way of giving the poorest of the poor some conditional cash transfers. If they follow whatever moral strictures their conscience allows or their religions allow, and try to make a workable program. Now, we cannot have a program which is so close to the heart, starting off with massive opposition and massive division. No way. No way a program like that will be sustainable or will work. No. So, we really have to find a way to dialogue, to give the imperatives, and let's say too that if government does not have the primary responsibility, then responsibility must lie elsewhere also. Because it's unfair just to leave the effects to government too, without government having some participation in the initial inputs. No? So, government must be there to support whatever moral choice is given. But we must continue to dialogue with each other because it is a problem. And secondly, it is time perhaps, if government is not there, for civil society, for the religious sectors, for non-governmental organizations to go actively and participate in solving this national problem.
Thank you so much, Secretary. We continue on. Mr. President Teodoro, what will you do about decreasing of health practices like doctor and nurses in our country? Second, what will we assure from your government for us that who are given our services to our country? Thank you, from JM San Juan.
That's what I said earlier. Probably the practical answer that I can think of is universal participative healthcare coverage for all Filipinos. And then, if you increase the mandatory cover of the pool right now to all Filipinos, whether rich or poor, basta citizens and permanent residents, you immediately expand the base of available resources. Particularly too for reimbursing healthcare professionals. We may have a bigger pool for that. I tread on very, very careful ground here because our spending per gross domestic product for health is only at 2%, and it's a massive amount for budgetary resources already. The rest of our neighbors spend 3%. ASEAN wants 4%, WHO 5%. So, palaki po ng palaki. But the strongest country in the world, for the first time, a highly popular president was shouted at in Congress because of healthcare. It is a big problem. The United States spends 14% of GDP on health, and it's getting bigger. Why? Because as innovations grow in the field of medical science, costs increase because new inventions are included as standard protocols, they get more expensive, and people live longer. God bless them. They live longer, it gets more expensive. Here in the Philippines, let's try, because the coverage of field health is only 20% to 35, 40%. That's the estimate. So we want to expand that and plug gaps in the system to try to cover as many people as possible. And hopefully, we'll have more reimbursements for healthcare workers. Now, there's also another thing. We would like also the Department of Labor and Employment to monitor the situation of nurses very closely. Sooner or later, perhaps not now, we may be graduating many more than we can absorb.
Thank you so much, Secretary. We continue on. Good evening to our beloved pastor and to Secretary GIBO. All the Kingdom citizens here in Jakarta, Indonesia are joining you live. We are sending our wishes to Secretary Teodoro. Matalino si GIBO. Believe kami sa kakayanan niya na mamuno sa ating bansa. Question, but I guess it has already been answered. Nevertheless, I'll read it. Good evening, Pastor and Secretary Teodoro. I just want to ask about GIBO's plans for the modernization of the AFP. Thanks and God bless.
Bago tayo mag-usap ng modernization, which means to say, and capable armed forces, which is primarily there to deter an external threat or to have massive participation in